Hi, I'm the OBG. Well, what can I say? It's been a busy few weeks, or a few days in fact, and I'm still content. The world is in turmoil, everything's about politics, bad governance, and nobody seems to be listening to or thinking of solutions. But I'll be presenting some ideas in future shows, and hopefully you can contribute. So, moving on. What can we start with today? I know. Let's try this. Answer this. Is it just banter or is it just jokes? People all too often use jokes to camouflage prejudice. And joking as camouflage doesn't eliminate the bigotry of the joke. Outward expressions through words or deeds with intention of alienating the majority of the group because a person feels that they simply have that right without consideration for others' feelings is bigotry. And no matter how it's stressed, bigotry is still bigotry. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because on Facebook recently, I've noticed that, I've seen a couple of people post, two people are, friends of mine, post what they thought were funny jokes about the tragedy that happened to the Vietnamese people in a container. And they were stupid anyway as well, because I don't watch news and read papers. It still comes to me, but they assume they claim they were Chinese. They made some really bad Chinese jokes anyway. And then, they rushed to defend them. So, there's a certain demographic that rush to impart these nasty jokes, and they come from the same set. They're mostly young males, and it's simply that they're out to cause a reaction as a primary reaction, and they're fully aware of the reaction that it will cause, but they quickly jump to defend their stance, and they incorrectly call it an opinion, while claiming that they're allowed to have an opinion. Well, my uninformed bad taste joke-telling friends, if you slip up calling it opinion, then you're giving the game away. Even without realising it, you were actually attempting to voice an opinion disguised as a joke. So let me tell you why you're thinking that racist, sexist and homophobic jokes are not funny in general. Racist jokes assert white supremacy. Sexist jokes reassert male supremacy. Homophobic jokes reassert heterosexual supremacy. And I'll stick with those three, because they're the most common themes. And whatever groups you're denigrating, you assume that they're exclusive from your environment. So when you argue, but it's just a joke and you find it funny, the people you are targeting that are standing right in front of you certainly don't find it funny. And you should not feel that they exclude themselves from your puerile banter. It's also important that you take on board that racist jokes silence people of colour, sexist jokes silence women, and homophobic jokes silence people that are gay. So attempting to force them to accept your worldview as the active voice is always an attempt to silence them. And if people don't want to be reminded of a painful history of oppression through an act of supremacy of any kind, that doesn't make them oversensitive. And claiming that they don't have a sense of humour is just pure nonsense. So like making any statement about terrible events, past or present, will always conjure up strong emotions. And simply telling people not to feel emotional because it's just a joke has zero justification. And there's no point trying to explain that other comedians do tasteless jokes. First of all, those people are genuinely funny. And second to that, people pay to see them in private clubs. So, a little word to you budding wannabe comedians and ignorant supremacists. Find your audience, but desist from putting your bigoted views on general audiences. Be nice. So moving on to another little topic of mine, Facebook again, it came up. Me and a friend had a debate with another angry guy recently on Facebook. And the other guy was angry about the fact, believe it or not, that my friend enjoys sleeping and is not part of the 9-to-5 workforce and a voter. And this is one of my friend's responses. He said, I'm in perfect self-governance as far as sleep patterns are concerned. I cannot remember the last time my sleep was influenced by external forces other than cryptochrome disruption or circadian rhythms interfered by electromagnetic pollution, melatonin suppressant poisons in food, etc. And I certainly can't remember when I last wanted to go to sleep but couldn't, or had to wake up when I didn't want to. When I was a lad and someone asked what I wanted to be when I was older, I used to tell them that I didn't care as long as I could sleep and wake when I wanted. I hated having to wake up for school and then slavery for a few years until I decided that money wasn't worth the discomfort and time spent. And that's why I dedicated that I could hack the kind of frugal and semi-ascetic life for others, the life that people are scared of. And that's why I chose to get married not to get married, rather, and not to have kids. And I thought it was a brilliant response. In the main, because it's how I choose to live my life regarding sleep. I made many decisions in my life which allowed me to fit my ways of making a living around that and around when I could sleep. And I was mostly successful, and it gave me contentment. It also lessened the heartache of having to work 9 to 5 when I did do contracts. Now, most people subscribe to 9 to 5 living, and they believe that's all there is. They base everything around man-made patterns and the rigidity of the clock, you know, rather than those of natural body rhythms of the sun or the moon or just natural body cycles. And I even see people that preach about healthy living state that you ensure that you get plenty of rest, followed by making sure that you go to bed between 10 and 11 and then rising at a given hour, which isn't conducive to health. Sleeping by the clock is unnatural and unhealthy. If you need to be alarmed to wake up, then you obviously need more sleep, and any form of alarm is stressful. Our bodies have their own natural sleep cycles, and if you base your life and work around your sleep with the odd inconsistency, you will have a healthier existence. You know, people are ashamed to say that they were in bed late. I don't know if you've ever spoken to someone and said, oh, you just got up. And they're like, oh, yeah, sorry. Then they start making excuses as if, like, sleeping because your body required sleep is embarrassing. And people are always making excuses for sleeping in. You know, they quickly rush to find something positive to say about or an excuse as to why they were in bed. Oh, I had a late night last night. It really doesn't matter. You know, if your body needs to sleep, sleep. And people are also afraid to sleep when they're naturally tired. You'll see people saying, like, oh, God, I'm really knackered. I'm really tired. I could do with a sleep. But they'll fight it and fight it. And it's like, just go and sleep. You may not always be in a place to sleep, but we've got to learn to do that. Can you imagine a society of trust whereby you did want to sleep, you just shut your eyes, wherever you sat, and you actually fell asleep? There's some dodgy people out there. It's not going to happen for some while. So oversleeping is sometimes a sign of poor health too. So don't get carried away with it, especially if you're not active. Many people have trouble sleeping, in my view, due to inactivity. And then moving forwards, they claim that they're insomniacs, or they try and lay claim to some form of illness. Trust me, if you take up a sport or go for regular walks, even running if you're able, you will sleep. Your body just gets really tired and it says to you, I need to sleep, and it will sleep. So, with that in mind, remember, this is a show about the people, by the people, for the people, and it can work if you contribute. So please send your stories, send things that you want me to cover, send images, videos, even send your music to obgchat@gmail.com, even if you just want to tell me how I'm doing. And, once again, the aim is to create a show that grows until we have regular viewers so that we can pull away from the mainstream for 10 minutes every single day, and that would be a measure of our success. And don't forget,
you're the producers of the show. I just want to let you know.
good stuff.
You not heard of the OBG? Big people talk, man. You need to get involved. You might even catch a blessing.
Okay, so moving on, I said I was going to talk about the Joker and the left-wing politics that are involved. It's not only the left, it's the left and right, but people are talking about the left more so. So let's get this going. Right. Almost there. I didn't want that up, did I? Okay, live. So it just seems that the Joker has certainly caused a stir and division amongst many of its viewers and commentators. And without a doubt, most of the harsher critics are coming from those who hold left-wing views, and it covers some strong but very important themes, and it covers a whole heap of modern-day issues that we are faced with in our Western society, and it induces empathy towards the disenfranchised, disaffected white males in society. It also doesn't shy away from the serious issues, such as how children that are raised without fathers are affected. It goes in detail into mental health and how we're losing the services that look after our mental well-being, and how we're being fed psychotropic drugs, on scale. Something which Big Pharma and commission earning doctors have been shaking hands over for many, many years. And another topic that it includes is how diversity that is forced, or induced diversity, creates low trust communities. And this is a divisive topic that I mostly discuss with my close friends. And there is also homelessness, suicide, and many other topics which you'll find in this film. And one of the most interesting topics for me was that it shows a decline in civic engagement and the breakdown of community, another subject that I'm vocal about. And we no longer live as communities. Instead, we chase these idealistic individual lives which are competitive and selfish, and the negative effects which can be seen in loneliness, suicides, drug dependency, and a host of other issues. There are also claims in the movie that it's pushing disaffected young white men to go out and pick up guns, much like the movie Falling Down from 1993, in which Michael Douglas played the part of William Defence Foster. I've only noticed the name play on words today doing my research. And he's a man who breaks down one day and goes on a little, a large havoc, what do you call it? Wreaking havoc. It goes out wreaking havoc. And there's also Taxi Driver from 1976, in which Robert De Niro, who plays Travis Bickle, a man pushed over the edge, does much the same. So both movies, for all their worth, show white men pushed to the edge, taking out their frustrations and what they deem as a decline caused by alien influences. And of course, many people saw these movies and justified the behaviour of both men without little sympathy for their victims, which in effect supports the average guy taking up arms against diversity. But on the flip side, the film simply shows that disassociation and disengagement and how it feels like. And the ensuing ride is long and harsh, and maybe, as some claim, the left-wing critics of the movie are uncomfortable about this cultural representation of that type of white male. And that may indeed carry some weight, and in my view, it is a point to consider. We also have to admit that there are less sympathies towards those who have it all when they do fall. So sometimes I can see where that's coming from. But I'll still remain in the centre. The film will cause some rage from the right and equally from the left, and I hold on to the view that it's just a movie that highlights many of the problems in our society, with strong left and right views being part of those. However, these big budget movies always contain the imperfections of those that make them, and this is yet another film that claims to be centred but comes from a very Eurocentric cast of developers. The Joker is definitely worth multiple viewings. The programming is very strong and it may induce your anger. So if you haven't seen it already, I've got a little something for you. I'll show you the trailer. It's just over 2 minutes long, for those of you who haven't seen it already.
Can you please stop bothering my kid?
Sorry.
Arthur, I have some bad news for you. This is the last time we'll be meeting.
You don't listen, do you? You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts.
And finally, in a world where everyone thinks they can do my job, check out this guy.
When I was a little boy and told people I was going to be a comedian, everyone laughed at me. Well, no one's laughing now.
You can say that again, pal.
It's so awful, isn't it?
For my whole life, I didn't know if I even really existed. But I do. And people are starting to notice.
You think this is funny? Is this a joke to you?
Murray, one small thing.
Yeah.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Send in the clowns.
You not heard of the OBG? Big people talk, man. You need to get involved. You You might even catch a blessing.
Got that wrong, didn't I? Okay, so yeah, it's a great film. Go and see if you haven't already made your own mind up, and let me know what you think about The Joker. Write a comment or send an email to obgchat@gmail if you want to discuss further. And I really think it's a great film. Joaquin Phoenix, he absolutely blows his part away. Amazing acting. So I'm going to move straight on. I'm going to be completing the Greta Thunberg expose. If you want to see, in fact, let me just change over. Boom.
There's a man who contradicts. Wait, he's the type of guy to you. There's no first place, but he's part of a race. Eyes lie, but take a look inside. They mirror the sights you'll see.
Okay, so this is a continuation from shows 5 and 4, and it's the summary. So if you want to learn more detailed information about the people I'm talking about, the key players and the roles, and the plot, and the full nasty, check out shows 5 and show 4. I've put the O's in front just to remind me that I'm going to get up to show 199. So the fact that Greta is a teenage girl on the autism spectrum, as well as suggestions that there's a whole network of green elitists who orchestrated her influence, divided the opinion of people on climate change. It even more so, additionally, angered the climate change deniers, and it seems that her whole story encouraged their disbeliefs and gave them yet another reason to think that the climate change weren't actually real, or at least not as alarming and immediate as the movement claims. They believe that the climate crisis is merely another exaggerated challenge imposed by green capitalists eager to increase their already abundant wealth from the greening of rich and developed countries. And different scientists tell a different story. Some of them, like the IPCC, on whose information Greta relies, conducted research that suggests that she may in fact be right, and that we are truly on the verge of mass extinction, with only 12 years to act before we reach a point of no return. However, there are also those who, while not always entirely being in dismissal of the climate change claims, that they're not always triggered by these claims, which men claim are triggered by man. They believe that it's not as alarming as depicted. Sorry, I just had all these fucking letters in my head. I just couldn't work them out. So even if it was indeed that serious, the latter are comforted by the fact that humanity was never as technologically advanced as it is today, which in turn means that we were never more prepared to face any climate change related challenge, and that's given us confidence to deal with whatever's put in front of us. But to use a mentally challenged teenage girl to spread the news of the alleged upcoming doomsday, it really can't be justified. So, even if her messages are real, abusing an autistic child and scaremongering other children is simply not acceptable. At the end of the day, while global warming is noticeably happening, neither the climate change activists and scientists nor deniers can actually be 100% certain that the end result will be as devastating or non-existent, as each of their sides have predicted respectively. So new research is constantly being conducted and new data being explored by the day, and the reality is simply that the best anyone can do is to further educate themselves to be as eco-conscious as possible. Now that was short because that was just a summary, but if you want to see the juicy bits, go to shows 004 and 005. And if you are interested in reading further, there is a website called Ice Age Now, and that has an interesting document which is titled 25 Simple Bullet Points Proving CO2 Does Not Cause Global Warming. And I think a quick sample would serve. For instance, one point states, the greenhouse hypothesis on which IPCC's belief in AGW is based is that atmospheric gases trap heat. But this old 19th century notion is merely an idea. It's not a hypothesis because it is untestable, impossible to prove in a laboratory, as no experimental container can imitate Earth's uncontained, well-mixed atmosphere. And geologists know climate change unrelated to atmospheric CO2 occurred through Earth's 4.5 billion year history, yet the IPCC, United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has no geologists among the hundreds of appointed authors of its fifth assessment report of 2014 and its sixth report due in 2022. Thus, the IPCC incredibly lacks both geological input and long-term perspective. Anyway, you can see more at www.icegenow.info. That's www.icegenow.info. And I did check the author's credentials, and that states that Robert W. Felix, who is the author of Not by Nature, but by Ice and Magnetic Reversals, and even Evolutionary Leaps, majored in architecture at the University of Minnesota School of Architecture in the mid-1960s, and afterwards he travelled through the US working with architects from all over, then finally settled in Tucson, where he designed 300 custom homes. And then in the 1980s he spent 8 years full-time researching and writing about the coming of an ice age. And it also claims that Felix is not affiliated with any university, scientific establishment or corporation, and therein lies his strengths, because he's untainted by institutional bias or conventional wisdom. And so this architect turned author brings fresh insight to the study of the ice ages. And he likely knows his stuff, but just go and take a look to gain yet another perspective, because it's all about belief in the end. And on that note, I'm going to leave you. Thanks for watching, and do tune in to the next show. I'm the OBG. I think people really know the true hypnotic power of television. You know how it pulls us in and just keeps telling us to consume, buy, and tells us to hate each other and separates us and causes the greatest divides.